All right, so we have two. So this is just using the stochastics here, and there's two conditions going on here. So one condition, I guess condition 1 or condition A is looking for when let's see, I'm sorry, actually it's going to be the red line. So let's pay attention to the faster moving stochastics. So right when the red line here, when it's in the overbought or oversold situation, right? That's condition A, and then separately, condition B is kind of like this area here, where we're looking to see if one stochastic is above or below the other stochastic. All right, so two separate conditions. So now when the faster stochastic is in these overbought or oversold or overbought conditions, this is an overriding condition, right? So condition A has priority over condition B, right? So the key is, how do we get the signals out from condition A when condition A is being met versus when the stochastics are in the middle here, when the stochastics is not overbought and not oversold. When stochastics is in the middle, then we want to display the results from condition B. Right? So how do we flip back and forth from condition A to condition B? So that's kind of the premise here. All right. So let's get BloodHound open here. And we'll put today's file date in there. All right, the 12th. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to jump straight over to the logic board here. Okay, so let's first step is to build condition A and then build condition B. So for condition A, I'm going to use a threshold solver here. All right, so I'll grab a threshold. There we go. Connect it up. So let's give this a name here. So this is simply just the stochastic in, above 80 or below 20. So we're just using the 80-20 threshold. And let's put the stochastics in here in just a moment. So I'm using slower stochastic periods here. Let's see, 7 and 14. Okay. So I just wanted to get the indicator periods. Alright, so this is using the stochastics fast, and then we're going to slow it down. So we're using 7 and 14. It's not exactly what Kirk was using, but close enough. Okay, so we've got the settings for the red stochastics, right? The faster moving stochastics. We got that indicator set right there. So next we're going to put in the overbought and oversold levels. So I'm going to do 80, 80, and then 20 in there, 20, 20. Now, just as a reminder, that for the threshold solver, you can't leave that 0 at C. The one in the middle, C, cannot be left at 0. So these values have to be in descending order. Right? So we're going to pick some kind of value in the middle between 80 and 20. So I'll just simply use 50. All right. Now, let's see, the what was being used is that when the stochastics is above 80, we want a long signal here. Right, so, oh, you know what, sorry. Oh, yeah. You know what, sorry. It's not the red line, it is the green line. Sorry. Green line is the faster one. So, okay, so we are looking at the green line. Sorry about that. Okay, so we can see, right, the faster stochastics, which is the green line. When it's overbought, right, above 80, we're getting, right, a long output there. And then the last step here for the short outputs, when the stochastics is less than 20, we want to get a short output for that value. All right, so there we go. So there's our short condition, right, when our stochastics is below 20, and long condition when it's above 80. So that's condition A right there. All right, so condition A. Okay, next let's work on condition B. And so let me reverse these arrows here. So there's condition B. So we're just simply looking to see if the faster stochastics, the green line, is above or below the slower stochastics, the red line. So we're going to use the comparison solver for that. All right, so let me name this solver first. So we're looking to see if the stochastic's fast. The faster one is above or below, right, the slower stochastics. So when you're using the comparison solver here, right, so we're using the comparison solver for this one. So when using the comparison solver, typically you want the faster indicator in indicator A, and then you put the slower indicator down here in indicator B. Right? So let's set the faster stochastic up here. So I'm going to grab a stochastics fast and change the period settings. So that's the faster stochastic, and we're using the %D on both of these. Alright, and next we'll put the slower stochastic in. So let's go grab that. So another stochastic's fast. And this time we're using slower settings, which is 14 and 21. And once again we're using the %D. And so that's it. So now if we look at the chart, let's get rid of that. Right, you can see whenever the green stochastics is above the slower red stochastics, right, we can see that when the green one's above, we're getting a long output, and if the green stochastics is below the red line, then we're getting a short output, right? So that is condition B. So now that you can visualize condition A and condition B, now the key is when condition A happens, we want this to override condition B, like so. And you know what, sorry guys, just a moment, I need to plug my mouse in here. So I got a rechargeable mouse, and it just told me the batteries are about to die. So okay, there we go, ready to go. Alright, so let's just kind of show some examples of what you guys might have tried. So if you try an OR node, that's definitely not going to work. Right, you'll notice that we get some areas here, right, where we get long and short signals at the same time. Right, and that's because we have condition A being met, and also at the same time we got a couple of bars of condition B being met. So this is where condition A and condition B overlap, but that's not what's wanted. So condition B should be just completely ignored, right? So an OR node doesn't work because it just allows an OR node allows both condition A and condition B to just pass right through, and you actually see both conditions at the same time. So the OR node doesn't work, and the AND node, and oops, trying to grab that AND node here. Uh-oh. Looks like Ninja's thinking about something here. Let's see. Interesting. Looks like my chart's locking up. Alright, let's give this a moment here. Since Ninja crashed, I gotta reset my chart back up. Alright, I'm going to rebuild the solvers. Alright, so I was trying to demonstrate the AND node next. So let's plug both of these in. So somebody might try thinking, well, maybe the AND node gets me what I want, but actually the AND node isn't what is needed either. So let's see. Let me move back to a cleaner looking part of the chart. Here we go. Okay. All right. So there's condition B. I'll use the circles for condition B. And put a couple of arrows on here for condition B. Yeah, condition B. Right. So what happens is with an AND node, you get the overlap of condition A and condition B, right? So we can see we have down here, we have condition A happening, right? Because the stochastics is oversold, and at the same time we have condition B happening here, right? So the green line is below the red line, so where we get the short output, that's actually the overlap of where condition A and condition B agree with each other, right? So so with the AND node, this area here, well, that's where condition A and condition B do not agree with each other, so there's no output. So the AND node doesn't work either. So let me just save this here. So since condition A, this solver here, condition A, since that's our overriding condition, that has priority, and we only want to see these signals. Otherwise, we want to see condition B signals. What we're going to use is a if-then node. Now, a lot of people just start plugging the if-then in like this. Alright, so look, you use the if-then like this, and so far everything looks great. So we can see condition A, right? So when their stochastics is overbought, right, we're seeing the long signals for condition A, and when our stochastics is oversold, we're seeing the short signals for condition A, right? And then they might think, okay, so this other condition B goes into right, the else condition down here. There we go. But if we look at our output, well, it's not quite correct. You know, if we look here, we can see that there's an overlap here of condition A and condition B. So that's not what's wanted either. Right, we see there's an overlap over here as well. So that's not what's wanted. So the common mistake is that the leader, let's zoom in here. So I'm going to have to disconnect it. So this leader here going into the if, this is the kind of where the misunderstanding occurs here. So you know, if you watch the video on the if then, it gives it's going to give a full explanation of why this doesn't work, but the short version is that there's two switches in here, and so you need to, right, there's a long switch and a short switch inside this if then node, and so this solver needs to control both switches at the same time. So what we need is a long short modifier, right? So just as a reminder here, so what's happening, right, is this condition A has a long output. So when it gets a long output, it controls the long switch in the if then node correctly, but it doesn't control the short side switch in here correctly. And the same thing when we get this, when the stochastics is oversold here, well, the short switch is moved correctly, but the long switch is in the wrong position. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this long short modifier, and we're going to put it in addition mode like that. And let me just put a name on there, addition mode. So now when you look at what's coming out of the long short modifier, right, we're getting a long and a short output. Whenever condition A happens, we're now getting a long and short output. So now both the long and the short switch, the long and the short switch inside the if then will now be controlled correctly. So we're going to take this, plug that in like that. And so we're going to connect this condition A to the then, and right, so it still looks good for condition A on our chart. So now let's plug in condition B, and now this is the correct results here. So we can see on BloodHound there's excuse me, there's no overlap anymore, right? And and so when our stochastics, right, so when the green stochastics, right, is in this no man's land here, basically we can see condition B is what takes over. So we can see the output here is going from short to long when condition B, when we get this crossover of the stochastics, right? We get this crossover of the stochastics, right, which is the green line above or below the red line, right? So this is condition B. Now we can see that that's switching here correctly. So, and let's see here. Let's take a look at this. Here's a good example. So, as soon as the green stochastics leaves the overbought area, then what happens is condition B takes over right here. Right? Condition B takes over, and the short output begins because the stochastic is, so the green stochastic is going from overbought, which gives us the long output, and so that stochastic, then it switches over to condition B where the green stochastic is below the red stochastic, which is condition B, and so then therefore we get the short output. So, all right, well that does it. So the key here to, I think I'd say this is kind of the most common way that probably the if-then node is actually being used. This is the most common way. And so the key to getting it working is using the long-short modifier in the addition mode, like so. Alright, so that's Kirk's question there. So some of you may have a divergence indicator out there. And so the question came up is that, I don't have a divergence indicator. Unfortunately, there's no free divergence indicator out there, so I don't have one in this workspace. So we're just going to pretend like I have a divergence indicator on here. So let's see, so let me draw a couple of lines here. Right, so we can kind of see that, possibly it looks, it does look like we do have a slight divergence on our stochastics here. And if we look at the same points, right, so there we go. So price moved higher, our stochastics moved lower, so we have a technical divergence set up here. So the key is, so let's say right, so this is a short divergence, right? This would be considered a short divergence here, right? So the question is, if your divergence indicator, tells you that there's a potential short divergence, how do you want to make sure that you block long signals, right? So if your indicator's saying, hey, there, looks like a short divergence is coming up, how do you block long signals, right? You may not want to take long trades if your indicators are telling you that there's a potential short divergence coming up. So how do you, block any long trades, when this short divergence kind of comes up here? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this stochastics to kind of mimic what a divergence indicator could do here. So let me shrink this up here. So I'm going to use this previous threshold solver that I already built as an example. Alright, so since I don't have a divergence indicator, I'm just going to use, once again, I'm just going to use this stochastics overbought, oversold to kind of mimic, what a divergence indicator could do. So, right, so when we get this long output, let's pretend that that's our divergence indicator. Actually, sorry, let's let's do this. I'm going to make a copy of this. Alright, I'm just going to reverse the outputs here so it looks more like a divergence output. Alright, so you can see I just basically changed the output settings here to reverse the signals. Okay, so now let's take a look at that solver. Okay, this makes a little more sense. All right, so so this short output, let's pretend that that's our divergence indicator telling us, hey, there's a short divergence, that could be setting up here. Right, so if our divergence indicator is telling us, right, there's a potential short, we want to block any long trades during this time. And let's see. Well, we're just going to have to pretend that this is our divergence indicator telling us that there's a potential long divergence here. So this is mimicking our divergence output here. All right, so how do we block how do we block long trades when there's a potential short divergence, and then how do we block short trades when there's a potential long divergence here? So we want to block short trades here, and we want to block long trades here. So to do the blocking, all we need is an AND node. But the key is to get these signals from our divergence indicator. The key is to get these signals manipulated in a way that it'll work with the AND node. Okay. All right. So let me do one more. I need one more solver. So I'm just going to grab this guy, and this is going to represent the trade signals. Right. So let's just pretend that these are our trade signals here. Right. So that solver just puts a whole bunch of buy and sell signals on the chart, so it's going to make it easy for us to see what's going on here. And let's see, yeah, you'll notice where there's no output, right? The black areas where there's no racing stripe, those are just dojis. So, but otherwise, if it's an up bar, we're getting a long signal. If it's a down bar, we're getting a short signal. All right, so this just provides a lot of signals for us. And so the key here is, once again, the key here is to get our divergence indicator signals manipulated in a way so that this AND node will actually do the blocking, right? So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do two things. We're going to swap the output, and then we're going to invert the output. Right? We're going to do a double manipulation on these signals, I guess you could say. And so we're going to do that with the inverter. The inverter will do that for us, all in one. And with the inverter, I do need to turn the swap on. So remember I said we're going to swap the output, and then we're going to invert the output. So we're going to do both. Okay, so that right there is the output that we want. So see this area here? This area here where there's no long output, right? Where it's absent a long output. So this absence of a long output will block any long signals that are happening during our short divergence kind of setup here. So this is the key here, right? Otherwise, any other time we have a long signal, so that means that the long, or I should say we have a long output here, right? So that means that when you see this long output, that means long trade signals will be free to pass through the AND node, right? And same down here. So you see all this short output area. So whenever you see this short output, that means a short trade signal can pass through the AND node. And so over here, so if you remember, we're going to pretend that this area is our long divergence, and so we don't want to we want to block short signals during a potential long divergence. And so the absence of a short output here means that short trade signals will not be able to pass through the AND node. Alright, so let's take a look at the AND node here. And then let's connect up our divergence filter. And there we go. So let me mark this a little better here. I'm getting some weird things happening with my cursor. Huh. There we go. Looks like I cleared that cursor up. Alright, I'm getting a little worried that Ninja might crash on me again. So let me just save this. There we go. Okay. So let me mark these areas here. Alright, so this is where we want to block. This is where we want to block long signals. And this is where we want to block short signals. Okay, so let's take a look at the AND node again here. Right, so if we look in this area, let me grab an arrow. Here we go. So if we look in this area, we'll see there are no long signals. Right? There's no long signals in there, so the long signals were blocked. And then if we look in this area over here, we'll see that there's no short signals, and so all the short signals were blocked. Right? So, right, very simple to do. We just needed a AND node, and we needed this inverter node, and we had to take the swap and turn the swap on. So, all right. So that's that example there. All right. So Rodney's asking, how would you program BloodHound to exit a trade when the bar is completely above or below the SMA, not touching the SMA at all? Okay, sure. All right, Rodney. Yeah. Okay, let me just kind of wrap this up here. So let's give this a name. All right, let me start a new logic board. Okay, there's a couple of ways we could do this, Rodney. So let me ask you, so we could build a exit signal that gives an exit signal the entire time that bars are above our moving average, right? So I'll just use this SMA 10 here, the white one, as an example here. Right. Let me make this other one smaller, so it fades back a little bit. All right, so I could build an exit signal that fires off, right? That fires off an exit the entire, whenever the bar is completely above our moving average, or whenever the bar is completely below it. Or we could build an exit signal that only fires off on the first bar, right? So we get an exit, so we only get one exit signal when the bar is completely above. Here, let's zoom in here so we can see this. Right, so I could build an exit signal that just fires off on the first bar that closes completely above our moving average, or over here, right, when the bar closes completely below it. Or I could build an exit signal that generates, I could build an exit condition that generates exit signals the entire time the bars are above, completely above our moving average. So I guess which one would you like? So the key is, if we have an exit signal that fires off the entire time price is above our moving average, then what would happen is, let's see, so I guess, so for example, I guess when price closes above our moving average, we want to exit a short trade, right? We want to exit a short trade. So, so if you build an exit signal that fires off the entire time price is above, then you wouldn't be able to take any short trades. No short trades would be allowed. Basically, Raven would just ignore any short signals if there is an exit signal to exit a short trade, right? So that's one of the that's kind of one of the features that BloodHound would do. So I mean, sorry, that Raven would do. So all right, so yeah, Rodney's would like to see that one. Okay. All right, let's get this open here. All right, so we're going to generate an exit above or below a moving average, right? Actually, I'll just go ahead. So above or below an SMA. All right, so to do this, we're simply going to use a comparison solver. Right, so the key to understanding how this is going to work is knowing, okay, so what tells us when a bar is completely above the moving average? Well, when the low price of the bar is above the moving average, then we know the bar is not touching, right? Or if the high price of the bar is below the moving average, then we know the bar is not touching. So those are the two price points that are key here. So the first thing we're going to put in our comparison solver is price. So indicator A is going to be price. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So when price breaks above our moving average, is completely above our moving average, right? So we want to exit short trades, right? Price moved up, and so we want to exit short trades. So we want a long signal, right? A long output exits a short trade. So for price type long, we're going to set that to the low price. And then to exit long trades, we're going to use the short output, and then we're just simply going to use the high price, like that. And yeah, we're almost there. So the other thing I need to do is, remember, I have an SMA 10 on my chart, so let me just change this to an SMA 10, like so. Alright, so this long output, right, this long signal, that will exit a short trade, right? And just the opposite is true. So the short output here, the short signals, will exit a long trade, right? So that's it, done. Yeah. So you can see my little rectangle box here, right? So the excuse me a moment. The entire time that we get this exit signal, right? So the entire time we get this short exit signal, if you put this into Raven, Raven will not allow a short trade if Raven sees this short exit signal. So the short exit signal will effectively block Raven from taking any short trades as well. Right? So Raven would be able to take a short trade when there's like no signal. Right? So right here there's no exit signal, so Raven could take a short trade. And of course it can take a short trade when there's these long exit signals. So alright, that's that. So, and let me just let me name this solver here. So we're just looking to see if the high or the low is above or below the SMA 10. So there we go. I guess that's a decent name for that solver. Alright, let's see. So, yep, looks like that does it for Rodney's question. Otherwise, let's see. Yeah, that's right. I've got a question from James. So, James was looking at one of these, right, YouTube videos, one of these workshop videos. He found one that used the Keltner channel and an RSI combination. And he wanted to know if we did a video showing the Keltner channel and a CCI combination instead. And no, we don't. I don't think we do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the CCI condition here that James had outlined. Yeah. So I don't remember what the Keltner channel setup, the Keltner channel condition was. I don't remember what that was. So I won't be able to do that part of it. But I can do the CCI condition that James had outlined. Alright, so let's minimize that. In just a moment while I get my chart set up. Alright, so let me put a CCI on the chart. Okay, there's our CCI, and let me set the lines up here a little bit. Okay. So I want to make the 100 lines stand out a little better. So we're going to be using the CCI crossing the 100 lines. Let me make these a little thicker. Okay, there we go. That should be pretty obvious. So, right, you can see the dashed white lines here on the CCI. So those are the 100 and negative 100. So the CCI condition that James wants to look for is, right, so we get the CCI crossing up and above 100, and we want to identify when the CCI crosses down below 100, right? So we want to identify this cross down below 100, and we want to identify this cross up above negative 100, like so. And just a moment while I read his question again. I just want to make sure I got all the components here correct. Oh, okay, yeah. So here's the other requirement. So, for example, when the CCI crosses above 100, like this, it needs to be above 100 for at least 3 bars, right? At least 3 bars. So, like, for example, this right here, right, the CCI popped above 100 for only 1 bar. So we want to ignore this cross down, but we want to keep this cross down because our CCI was above 100 for more than 3 bars for sure. So right here, let's see, and actually this would be ignored too, I think. So I don't think the CCI was below negative 100 for more than 3 bars. It looks like it was only 2 bars below. It's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard to tell exactly when the CCI crossed that negative 100. So this one might be ignored. But this one would definitely work, definitely count. So definitely looks like the CCI is below negative 100 for more than 3 bars, so we should get a signal there. So yeah, okay, yeah. So we're going to get a buy signal when it crosses above negative 100, and a sell signal when it crosses below negative 100. And the CCI needs to be above or below the 100s for more than 3 bars. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Alright, so let me get a new logic template started here. Alright, so we'll look for the CCI to be 3 bars above or below, right, the 100s. So, and let's see, first thing is let's build the crossover conditions. So, and let me just save this again just in case. Alright, so this is actually going to require 2 different crossover solvers. And the reason why is because we have a 100 value, so we're going to need one crossover solver for the 100 value and a separate crossover solver for the negative 100 value. So, all right, let's get this crossover solver going here. So we're looking at the CCI. Oops. The CCI crossing over 100. All right. So we'll put the CCI in here. And All right, just about. Dang, you know, my Ninja started acting a little funny this morning after upgrading, so let me just restart it, clear things out. Actually, I probably need to restart my computer. Yeah, I don't restart this computer that often. And if you're one of those people that just leaves your computer on all the time, yeah, it is good, like I do. It is good to restart your computer once in a while. It does fix a lot of stuff. All right, let me get connected to the data feed again. Okay. And, oh yeah, no wonder it's taking so long. Okay, let's shorten up the number of days on here. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so in indicator A, we're going to put the CCI indicator. And down here in indicator B, this is going to be our 100 value. So let's put 100 in there. Okay, so we can see, right, whenever the CCI crosses above or below that 100 line there, right, we're getting the buy and sell signals. But remember, we're only interested in the sell signals here. So let's see, let me find where I was at. I had some arrows on the chart. Well, okay. I'll just start again. Okay, so there is a cross below 100 for a sell and another one. All right, so I'll just mark two of these guys here. So we're not interested in the long signal when the CCI crosses above 100. We're only interested in the short signal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the evaluate and set it to short only. Right, there we go. So there's our short only signals when the CCI crosses below 100. All right, so that's one solver done. Now let me take a shortcut, and so here's that solver. I'll just make a copy of it, and this time we're going to do negative 100. All right, so let's put this on the board, and we'll plug that in. I'm going to connect that up. So let's see, so I need to finish setting the solver up here. So we're interested in negative 100, right? So I need to change our fixed value to negative 100 here. All right, and so let's take a look here. Actually, let's go over here. Here we go. All right, so we don't want the short signals from the CCI crossing below negative 100. We actually want these long cross ups. That's actually what we're interested in, is these cross up points. So we just need to change our evaluate to the long signals now. There we go. All right, we got quite a few long cross-ups. Okay, so that's our two CCI crossing conditions. So what we need to do is join them together with an OR node, like so. And so now we should see all of them. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's our various CCI crossing conditions. All right, so now the next step is, remember, we need to identify when the CCI has been above 100 or below negative 100 for more than 3 bars. So let's see if I can find an example. Yeah, so like down here, right? So we want to get rid of this long signal because the CCI only dipped below negative 100 for just a couple of bars. So we want to ignore that one, right? So part of the condition is the CCI needs to be below or above the 100s for more than 3 bars. So let's work on that condition. So, let's see. I'm gonna do that with a threshold solver. All right, so let's plug the CCI indicator in here. Okay, let's name this first. All right, so we're looking at the 100 and negative 100 threshold levels for the CCI. Okay, so let's put our threshold levels in here. And let's see, this is these are counter trend CCI signals. So we want a long signal when the CCI has been less than negative 100. And we want a short signal when the CCI has been above the positive 100. So there we go, right? So we can see the output matches our arrows, or the output matches our crossover conditions. Okay. So the next step is we're going to use this look back function node to identify when the CCI has been right above or below the 100s for more than 3 bars. So let's see, let's take a look here. Yeah, so rightly so. Remember this area, we can see there's only 2 bars that have a long output here. So that means the CCI was only below negative 100 for 2 bars. So this signal we want to get rid of, but we can see the other signals are actually okay. So we got, right, we have 3 bars over here, so that's okay. 3 bars over here, so that's okay. So we want to get rid of this guy. And looks like we're okay for the shorts over here as well. Yeah. So those are all have more than 3 bars. All right, so let's set this look back node to do some filtering. So we're going to set our look back to 3, and for now I'm going to just set the displacement to 0, but I will have to set that back. But I'm just going to explain how this look back is working first. Alright, so there. So we got our look back of 3 because we need at least 3 bars. And the mode, this is what's critical. Normally, I'd say the max mode is what's used the most common. But because we're looking for a minimum of 3 bars, we're actually going to use the minimum mode. Alright, so now look at the output now. It's quite different. So we notice over here there's no output anymore. Over here we got 1 bar, and that's because this is the 3rd bar of our 3 bar requirement. So when we get to bar 3, we actually get a signal or an output. And if we look over here, right, we can see we have 2 bars with a long signal. And that's because if we look, we had 4 bars where the CCI was below negative 100. So we had 4 bars. So our third bar, right? So our third bar gets a long output, and the fourth bar gets a long output. So, and over here we only had 3 bars. The CCI was below 100 for 3 bars. So we get 1 long output. So as long as we get a long output, that tells us that we had at least 3 bars below the negative 100. Now, you'll notice, hopefully you guys have noticed that, right, the output here, these long outputs, are not on the same bar as the arrow. Because remember, the arrow is where our crossover happens, right? Let me plug our crossovers back into the result node. Right, so the arrows are marking where the crossovers occur, but of course now the long output we're seeing now, right, that tells us when the CCI is below negative 100. And of course when it crosses, when we get the CCI crossing above negative 100, right, the CCI is no longer below it, so these long outputs stop. So what we need to do is we need to take these outputs that we have and shift them forward 1 bar. And so that's where, again, I go back to this displacement and put that 1 back in there. Alright, so now you'll notice that we have the signals on the same bar as the arrows, right? The same bar where the crossover happens. So now, the last step is we can take these two, right, so this is, right, like condition 1 and this is condition 2, and now we can join them together with a AND node to get a combination of that. And there we go. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So there we go. And yep, so we can see this long here was filtered out because the CCI was not below negative 100 for 3 bars or more. Wasn't below long enough. So, and same over here. I think that dipped below as well, just for 1 bars. Okay, yep, even. So we had the CCI dip below negative 100 for just 1 bar, but no signal. Wasn't down below long enough. So, all right. So I think that covers this one for James. So the key is the look back period. So if you need the CCI or whatever indicator you might be using, you know, if you need your indicator to be, you know, above a threshold level or below a threshold level for so many bars. You know, if we want to change our requirement to 4 bars, then I could just change this this look back period to 4, and I'm getting a real slow delay for my keyboard. Okay, anyways, there we go. So if I put a 4 in there, now the CCI, right, has to be above or below for 4 bars. Yeah, so we can see these signals now went away because the CCI was not below for 4 bars, but over here it was. So, all right, and the key was this mode was set to minimum there.